You need me. You need me. You need.
So, Garry's Mod is one of those games where despite it being around for 18 years, it's still just as relevant as it was back then. This is thanks to the active workshop scene, the many servers still up and running, and YouTubers like yours truly, because I can't stop yapping about it. To many out there, the game feels a lot more expansive than just typical sandbox and GM construct, with a lot of silly add-ons to help keep it alive. But beyond the silly nature of GMod, some players wonder if there's something more going on with this game. See, another reason why this game is still relevant is when you're playing single player, things begin to feel off. In multiplayer, obviously this isn't a issue since, you know, there's actual players around, but in single player, you still get the feeling that you are being watched by something. Many GMod players have expressed online that they've seen some sort of entity in their single player games, ranging from a dark figure in the distance to a off-putting, meaty looking creature lurking in the dark room of Construct. A cryptid is a creature that is found in stories and that some people believe exist or say they have seen but has never been proven to exist. Just like in real life, some video games have their own cryptids, although we usually just call them myths. In GTA San Andreas, we got Bigfoot, in Minecraft, we got Herobrine, and in GMod, well, we got several different types of cryptids, some of them being pretty iconic. Now, are any of these cryptids actually real? Well, no. No, absolutely not. But let's say, hypothetically, these cryptids were real. Then which one would be the scariest? I'm talking about a creature so spooky that if you were to actually see it in-game, you'd probably die in real life. Well, we're gonna be going over 10 GMod cryptids, and we'll be discussing the lore, the sightings, and if I actually find these creatures scary. That last part is my own opinion. What people find scary is really subjective, so if you disagree with my input, that's perfectly fine. Anyways, let's begin this list with a cryptid that I'm sure everyone in the GMod community knows about. Shadow figures are probably the most famous cryptids in all of GMod, being a well-known myth even in the early days. They're exactly what the name describes. These dark, shadowy humanoid figures that often stand from a distance, and every time you try to look at them, they disappear. Shadow figures are often associated with dead players, ghosts that are haunting the game and manifesting for some reason or another. They don't seem to be aggressive or anything, they're just kind of watching you. Now, these dark figures are normally found everywhere in GMod, but the one map that seems to be a hotspot for paranormal activity is RP Downtown V2. One of the first appearances of the shadow figure is from a 16-year-old video called GMod Ghost. In this video, Andre HZ is on RP Downtown V2, playing on an empty server. When he gets to his apartment, he notices that one of the windows was shattered. As he looks outside, the recording catches a glimpse of what the uploader describes as an almost invisible person. Sure enough, it's the shadow figure. Andre attempts to find this figure, but it is nowhere to be seen. He then drives to a gun shop and buys himself a Glock. When he leaves though, he notices that his Jeep has somehow disappeared, despite the fact that he is completely alone on the server. Nevertheless, he spawns in another Jeep and starts driving back, only to once again catch another glimpse of the same dark figure, this time heading into the subway. He chases after the figure, trying to find it, but once again, it has completely disappeared. When Andre leaves, he notices that his vehicle has disappeared once again. I guess this ghost really likes stealing Jeeps for some reason. Yeah, looking back now, obviously this video is fake. Like, there's a lot of noticeable cuts in between these encounters that kind of give it away. Still though, it's hard to ignore this video's impact, because not only is this the first time we ever see the shadow figures, but the map itself would become very well known in the GMod community for supposedly being haunted. After this video came out, other players would recount their own experiences on RP Downtown V2, claiming that the map was haunted by some sort of ghost. Of course, all the evidence they provided are flimsy at best. Nowadays, some people still believe that RP Downtown V2 is haunted, but not by some random entity. No, people now believe that the map's dead creator, the Pro, is the one haunting this map, and let me say up front, that's fucking disgusting. Look, I think the whole haunted map thing is fun and all, but tying the hauntings to an actual person who actually died is, once again, fucking disgusting. One of the problems with online horror nowadays is the need to tie fictional stories with real-life people who died. Either by picture or by name, it doesn't matter. This comes off as extremely tone-deaf. Horror is supposed to make me feel scared, but whenever someone does something like this, then I'm not gonna be spooked or whatever, I'm gonna be pissed off. Don't do that. Anyways, where were we? Oh yeah, this guy. The most famous appearance of the shadow figure would probably have to be in classic GM videos. In this ARG, the player is stalked by a dark figure, often causing distortion to the recording. Unlike other ARGs that copy this trope, classic GM videos was the first channel to ever attempt something like this, and I think it does it the best. However, since classic GM was the first, this has the unfortunate side effect of spawning a bunch of copycat ARGs, and when you start to see the same dark figure everywhere, it quickly goes from a scary threat to an actual joke. It doesn't help that the shadow figure is just an NPC colored black, like there's nothing special to it.
Whoa, is that blackface, dude?
Now, in my kind of unpopular opinion, despite it being very simple, I still think the shadow figure can be pretty scary in the right circumstances. But with how overused it is now, it has definitely lost its appeal. If you want to make the dark figure truly scary again, then instead of it trying to scare you, it doxes your IP address or something, I don't know. Spookiness rating, 3 out of 5. Sometimes still scary, but kind of bland now. Now, if you think the GMod community is unhinged, well, you're definitely right, but you have yet to see the Russian GMod community. Since PC gaming has always been popular in Russia, and GMod is a pretty easy game to run, naturally, it would form its own community. Now, since I'm a dirty capitalist pig, I still don't fully understand it. Hell, I tried watching a Russian GMod iceberg video to get a better understanding, and I'm pretty sure they copied the entire script from my own GMod iceberg video. Not trying to start a fight here or anything, but some of the writing in that video is very similar to what I wrote for my own video. Again, not trying to start a fight here, Russian community. Please don't send a tank to my house. Anyways, the Russian community has their own version of the shadow figure, called the Observer. The Observer is very similar to the dark figure, however, instead of a normal citizen NPC colored black, now it's G-Man colored black, which doesn't really change things that much. They act very similar to the dark figure, however, instead of being some random ghost haunting the player, the Observer is implied to be one single entity that's always watching the player. This sort of plays off the feeling you get when you play on maps completely alone. You know how you get the feeling that someone else is there with you, but there's no one? Well, according to the Russian GMod community, that's the observer watching. This also started a whole meme in the Russian community called "Single player is scary," which... Look, I'm already having a hard time understanding this cryptid. I'm not even gonna bother explaining. At the end of the day though, all this really amounts to is a slightly different dark figure. So, spookiness rating 2 out of 5. Not original, but alright, I guess. On July 18th, 2020, a user by the name of SaberSyn would write a Steam page called Semper the Black Figure. What is it? In this page, he describes running into a textureless player model of Gordon Freeman, just kind of standing there, and the strange part is, he couldn't make it go away. The only thing he could do was restart the game. He would go on to run into this strange player model a few more times in single player and even in multiplayer. Saber theorized that whatever this entity is, it's been here since the very beginning of GMod and maybe even Half-Life 2. Hell, if you go into third person in Half-Life 2, you'll see that you're playing as that very same model. It's always been around, hence why Saber has given it the name Semper. And then he commented on my iceberg video asking me to cover it. And I did, and here we are now, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of my fault that this entity is everywhere now, but I did have my reason for covering it. Looking back now, yeah, this article was kind of cheesy and hard to believe, but this is real. Like, actually real. Okay, not in a paranormal kind of way, far from it actually, but if you know anything about GMod, then you know that it's running on a modified version of the source engine. And if you know anything about the source engine, then you know that the source code is a goddamn mess. To be fair, Facepunch did do a pretty good job on cleaning up the source code, but there are still occasions where the game just kind of breaks. Case in point, Semper. I personally had encounters with Semper as well, whether it be me becoming Semper or me randomly running into Semper out of nowhere, just kind of standing there. All these encounters were the result of me using some sort of broken add-on, so for those who were hoping for something paranormal, sorry, but that's not what's happening here. This is simply just the source code breaking and displaying the player.mdl model for some reason or another. If you think about it, Semper is really just the physical manifestation of source engine spaghetti code. There's no rhyme or reason for it happening, it just kind of happens. While Semper being real is kind of scary to think about, at the end of the day, this is a bug, so... Spookiness rating 4 out of 5, real but very much unintentional. So, RP Baneclaw on the surface looks like your typical RP map. The map has many buildings and most if not all of them can be entered. It's a pretty standard RP map, but when you start heading down to the water canal, that's when things start getting weird. By entering through one of the doors, you can explore a vast underground network that is very easy to get lost in. And compared to the rest of the map, it's kind of unsettling. It's extremely dark, there's blood everywhere, and there's this off-putting music playing in the background. The music is from Resident Evil 2, and it's the background music that's playing right now. Compared to the bright, busy city of Baneclaw, the underground area is oddly creepy for an RP map. Then everyone began to wonder, is there something more going on down here? There's no reason for the atmosphere to be this unnerving. So, what's hiding down here? Then rumors began to spread that there was some sort of creature lurking underground. What didn't help was that the map's creator, Petzon, subtly hinted that there might be something down there. And so, the legend of the underground creature was born. The appearance of the underground creature is still kind of unknown, like there is no images or videos of what it supposedly looks like. Some say it's humanoid, or it's a stalker enemy, or something far worse. How you supposedly encounter this creature is by waiting 20 to 40 minutes, and then either at this pool or somewhere else entirely, it will begin attacking and likely kill you. Now, with the amount of people freaked out by this area, is the legend actually true? Obviously no. Many people have went to this underground area and have found absolutely nothing. I, myself, have personally decompiled this map to find this supposed Easter egg and have came up empty-handed. Was this overkill? Probably, but many were unsure, so I had to dispel the rumor somehow. The only thing that can kill you down here is if you jump down to this pit of water, a bunch of leeches will swim over and slowly kill you. Despite it obviously being fake, it's kind of easy to see why this map got its own cryptid and why it became ever so popular. The location itself is the perfect setting for alleged sightings. Almost too perfect, like I wouldn't be surprised if this is what the map creator wanted. The fact that people also don't know what it looks like just adds to the mystery in my opinion. Heck, it became so popular that fellow content creator Lucia made a haunted version of this map that included the underground creature. All I gotta say to that is, well, here's a clip. God, no. No. Spookiness rating 5 out of 5, a personal favorite of mine. GM4 is one of the more popular maps on the workshop since not only is it really expansive, but it's also very detailed too. Going from town to the mountainous forest, there are many little areas that you can explore, whether it's a warehouse, a gas station, or a missile silo. Fork just has so much going on, and I wouldn't be surprised if people are still finding stuff to this very day. However, for this next cryptid, we turn our attention to the forest area. Some players have reported seeing some sort of figure walking around in this area, and when they go to investigate, they couldn't find it anywhere. There's no account of what this creature looks like other than it just being a black speck in the distance, but with how it seems to only hide in the forest, some players have thought that this could have been an Easter egg to the real-life cryptid Bigfoot. Unfortunately, there's not really much of a mystery here because unlike the last cryptid, the map's creator, Blueberry Pie, instantly deconfirmed Bigfoot's existence when asked about it. And look, I know it's his map and all, but it would have been more fun just to keep the mystery going, in my opinion. You don't even need to say it's real or whatever, just give some sort of vague answer that'll keep players guessing. But whatever, the reason I kind of like this cryptid is because it reminds me of a simpler time back when YouTube was filled with these GTA myth videos. If you were around back then, you know exactly what I'm referring to. These low-quality recordings of players exploring Back-O Beyond in GTA San Andreas, trying to find Bigfoot, all while the theme of X-Files plays in the background. Sometimes they'll find nothing, and other times they'll find Bigfoot as clear as day. Obviously, this was a mod, but I didn't care. I was hooked on these videos. Yeah, I'm known as the funny GMod iceberg guy, but GTA San Andreas was a part of my childhood as well. And in a modern internet dominated by fucking skibbity toilet or whatever, any mystery that reminds me of the good old days is always nice. Spookiness rating 4 out of 5. Not scary, but nostalgic. This one... Now, Nestor is probably one of the more unique maps on the workshop, because rather than it just being one map that's the same every single time, the rooms are randomly generated. Every time you open a door, a new randomly picked room is generated each time, and whatever path you take, it could theoretically go on forever. Or until your game starts lagging. Basically, every playthrough of this map is completely unique. However, one player reported seeing something bizarre. When they came across a red corridor, the entire map suddenly went dark, and out from the darkness emerged a giant G-Man head before the game crashed. When they turned off their computer, it wouldn't turn back on, almost as if this entity bricked their entire system. They would give this entity the nickname G-Man Apparition, and I'm just gonna drop the act right here. Obviously, this was a shitpost. The G-Man Apparition is just a direct copy of the Wario Apparition.
Indianapolis? Oh, I hate Indianapolis. Only place I hate more than Indianapolis? Chicago.
The similarities are obvious, from the name to the appearance to the way it behaves. A lot of jokes from the Super Mario 64 iceberg kind of carried over to GMod, and that includes the Wario Apparition. Am I to blame for this? Probably, but that doesn't change the fact that this is just a direct copy of another cryptid that, in my opinion, was done way better. Heck, I'm pretty sure the original creator was not proud of this too, because I cannot find the original post anywhere. Spookiness rating 1 out of 5. Be original next time. So let's transport back to 2011. A much better time, in my opinion. You're browsing around YouTube, watching various GMod videos, until you came across a video by Jimbo MCB, and it looks rather weird. The video's title is You Need Me, and the thumbnail looks to be 6 G-Man heads all stretched out. Curious, you click on the video hoping to get more context, only to be greeted by this.
You need me. 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 You need me.
So, ironically, despite clicking on the video for more context, you're just left with more questions than answers. What is this thing? Why is it saying you need me? Why is it just standing there? Why anything? Well, this is the you need me creature thing. Looking at it, the appearance of this creature thing consists of the body of the Half-Life 1 scientist and 6 G-Man heads all stretched out and constantly saying, "You need me." How it acts is really weird too, like it chases after the player, but when it finally catches up to them, it just kind of stands there, staring at them while saying, "You need me. Why do we need you?" The description at least provides some context. This is what happens when you let Postal and Craptasket play the GMod beta. If you actually go on Craptasket's channel, we can find out more about this thing. In the video titled Another of Postal's Creations, which is literally the You Need Me video again, the description reveals that Postal was the one who made this thing, and Craptasket was the one who recorded this video. So credit goes to Postal for creating this abomination, and credit goes to Craptasket for recording the video that would later go viral. Craptasket actually has a sequel to this video called This Way Gordon, and it's just as confusing.
This way, Gordon. 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 This way, Gordon.
Honestly, whenever I think of the GMod cryptid, I would think of this fella right here. It's more so bizarre rather than being intentionally scary, which, hey, describes half of the content made for GMod, honestly. Spookiness rating, 5 out of 5. I have no words, other than, you need me. Here we got another Russian GMod myth, this time revolving around some supposed shadows in the water. The legend goes like this: if you kill NPCs near the pond on Construct, then shadows will form at the bottom, but if you swim towards these shadows, then they will disappear. This brings up the idea that whenever you kill an NPC, their soul gets trapped underneath this pond, being some sort of purgatory. Several GMod players have actually recorded themselves seeing these shadows below the water, and whenever they dive underwater, they disappear. Now this is actually real, but again, it's not paranormal. Below this specific part of the pond, you can no-clip underneath it and spawn a bunch of ragdolls. They'll try to rise to the surface, but they'll be stopped by the boundaries of the map. This pretty much yields the same exact result. Shadows can be seen above the water, but they disappear when you dive below. Now obviously, this is just some graphical source engine jank, no souls are being trapped. Now for the legend itself, well, it's original, but it's nothing special. It's supposed to make the player feel bad for killing the NPCs, but it's kind of hard to when they're just, you know, lines of code. Spookiness rating, 2 out of 5. Neat concept, but still kind of mid. We have one more Russian GMod myth, and this is kind of a weird one. Meaty is a meat-covered entity located in the dark room of Construct, often described as his domain. Meaty doesn't really do much, often just watching the player from a distance. However, if you do a specific series of actions, you can actually summon it. The series of actions you do changes depending on who you ask. One source says you need to spawn a bunch of NPCs and interact with them. Others say you need to kill them in a specific order. Or one random way to summon it is by spawning in a gray ball, which in normal gameplay is literally impossible. If you start seeing the shadows in the water that we mentioned earlier, then you know that you've summoned Meaty. Head into the dark room and you'll encounter Meaty itself. What it does after this remains unknown. What Meaty looks like though is still undecided. It's not like they're intentionally keeping it unknown to hype up the mystery, it's more so the fact that people can't decide on what Meaty looks like. One design that I personally find cool is this one right here. A bunch of limbs reaching out from the dark room. It's very creepy, but it also keeps the mystery in a way, as all we see is just these limbs. On the flip side though, the most common design we see of Meaty is this. This is a retexture of Breen to look more meat-like. And the reason for this design is, if you look in the secret room of Construct, you'll find graffiti of Breen supposedly turning into Meaty. Call me a buzzkill all you want, but even with this being the justification, I find this design boring, lame actually. Doesn't make sense in a grounded, game-accurate standpoint. Yes, but I don't care about realism. I want horrors beyond comprehension, not this. So, in summary, this multi-limb design of Meaty, that's a 5 out of 5. Absolute perfection, in my humble opinion. This green recolor of Meaty, that's a 0 out of 5. Absolutely lame, just no. Alright, I saved what is probably the best for last. Garry's Mod surprisingly doesn't have many creepypastas. Video game franchises like Sonic, Pokemon, and Minecraft have many creepypastas written about them, but I guess Garry's Mod got the short end of the stick. That doesn't mean it has 0 creepypastas though. We got some examples like GM Construct Framework, Garry's Curse, and can I even say this? However, there is one creepypasta out there that, after reading it, is probably my favorite of all time. Yes, I love it more than Sonic.exe, not really hard to achieve, believe me. I love it more than Lavender Town Syndrome, and I love it more than Herobrine. I'm talking about the hit creepypasta, Barry DeKrazi. Now, who is Barry DeKrazi? Well, Barry DeKrazi Newman is the forgotten brother of Garry Newman. Sound familiar?
John Freeman, who is Gordon Freeman's brother.
As the name implies, Barry is a bit DeKrazi, often referred to as Crazy Barry. He ran his own televised game show at one point called Crazy Barry's Crazy Game Show. That is a mouthful. Literally, the only thing that happens in this show is people getting hurt. Like, there was one person that was almost dipped into a pool of acid. And piranhas. Despite viewers watching people almost dying, the show was actually very successful and very funny. Barry became a billionaire at this point. The story's words, not mine. However, a fire broke out at the studio, and according to the story, this fire happened at the very same day that SpongeBob SquarePants first aired. Barry couldn't escape the fire though, and that resulted in him being severely burnt, with a desaturated and pale white look to him, which is not how burns look, but sure. Barry would live though, and later on, he, Garry, and John, for some reason, would go on to create a mod for Half-Life 2 called Barry's Mod. Ah, you thought Garry was the one who made GMod. No, it was actually Barry who made it. Plot twist, I know. One day though, Barry and Garry would get into an argument, and wanting to cool down, Barry would go to a lake and fish at his favorite spot. That's when he somehow slips in while fishing and was eaten apart by piranhas. According to the story, this happened on the very same day that the SpongeBob SquarePants movie came out. Garry, now sad that his brother died, decided to rename Barry's Mod to Garry's Mod. Some brother you are. Several years later, Garry would receive a package containing a glass of water mixed in with a ghostly substance. A note is also left telling Garry to pour the substance into his PC, so naturally, he does just that. Pouring literal liquid into his PC results in GMod having lifelike graphics, which, yeah, that's actually a life hack right there, try it. That's when Garry heard some crazy whispering, and he immediately knew who it was. I just gotta read this next part. He shouted, "Show yourself, Barry!" He then heard a really weird and creepy voice say,
Okay,
and then a giant crazy figure emerged from the lake.
how dare you take what was mine? It was all I had in life,
Said the evil giant Barry. Garry began shouting at his computer. No, I did not. I did all this for you, Barry. I promise, said the Garry, now in tears. Said Barry in a really creepy voice.
Lies, you did it for the money, the fame, the greed. You are a horrible brother. I'm going to make you pay for what you did to me.
The evil giant crazy and a bit twisted Barry descended into the lake. Barry then punched Garry in the private parts, and then he felt it in real life. Oh, this story. So after that interaction, Garry closes his game and deletes all traces of Barry in the code. Barry is now gone. Or is he? Again, I just gotta read this next part. But the story is not over. Although Barry has mostly been forgotten, his memory lingers. To this day, players of quote-unquote Garry's mod claim to have seen a mysterious black and white figure in their games, even in single-player mode. Legend has it that Barry is still making changes to the game, even in death, waiting for the perfect time to strike. So if you think you're safe in your Garry's mod server, think again. Because Barry certainly is the crazy. What? So, that was a, story, but it was one that I kind of love in a weird way. I know this was a shitpost, but this is exactly how I imagine a creepypasta for Garry's mod would be. Just fully embrace the randomness and humor of this game. I don't know why SpongeBob was such an integral part of this story, but he sure was. Yeah, there are better written creepypastas out there, and hell, I'm sure there are better written GMod creepypastas out there. But on pure entertainment alone, Barry DeKrazi is a personal favorite of mine. Now, what do I think of Barry DeKrazi himself? Spookiness rating 6 out of 5, actively pissing myself right now. And that's every GMod cryptid that I felt like talking about. I'm very much aware that there could be more cryptids out there, but I wanted to focus on the more well-known ones. And Barry DeKrazi. Any other cryptids either have little to no information, are from a lost forum thread made in 2009, or they are incredibly niche foreign gaming myths that don't see much discussion. I'll probably take a look at them another day, but until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then why not subscribe, just so you can keep hearing me yap about an 18-year-old game. Thank you all for watching, take care, and as always, I will see you guys next time.